Well, good morning and welcome once again to Elevenses. I'm Kevin Williams of Survival Skills Rider Training, and this is my twice weekly show where I look at news, views, and some better riding tips from time to time too. It's what is it today? I was just trying to remember. It's Sunday, isn't it? Sometimes the days of the week just flash by. Show number 287. That was what I was trying to find out. Got a fairly packed show today too. We'll be talking about a couple of bike jackings. One attempt, one succeeded. A Panigale, which was stolen whilst the rider was actually on the phone nearby. 14 bikes have been seized, 7 people have been arrested during a funeral ride out. A German equity firm has gained control of what we tend to think of as a French motorcycle manufacturer, Peugeot. Leeds, and how they managed to issue a bus lane ticket to a bus. And we'll come back to the Milan show as well with the latest news. There's a new 700 twin from Fantic. Honda have launched a CL500, and there are revisions for Yamaha's MT-07. Aprilia have also announced an electric motorcycle. And finally, in today's discussion point, I'll be looking at the difference between the ICE engines which burn hydrogen and hydrogen fuel cells, and also explain why hydrogen isn't yet a carbon neutral fuel, even though many people are attempting to position hydrogen ICE engines in that way. So grab yourself a cuppa, settle down for the next 40 minutes or so while I run through everything that I want to talk about today. As I say, I've got a fairly packed show. If you do have a question, drop me a line. Any comments on the show also welcome. Anything you'd like me to talk about, I'm quite happy to veer off topic and discuss something you want to talk about if you let me know what it is. So just drop me a line through the comment stream and we'll do that. Now, first of all, of course, a quick reminder. We do have a presentation coming up on Wednesday, the 7th of December at 8 p.m. It is the full Science of Being Seen talk. Now, if you are not aware of this, if you haven't come across Science of Being Seen before, it's a presentation that I prepared on behalf of Kent Fire and Rescue all the way back in the winter of 2011-2012. We ran it as the third module of Kent Fire and Rescue's Biker Down pilot presentations, talks. The accident management and first aid were modules 1 and 2, and Science of Being Seen was the accident prevention module, how to avoid getting into a collision where somebody needed to give you those accident management and first aid treatments. So that was the rationale behind Science of Being Seen. It's been going 10 years. It has now unfortunately been superseded within the fire service by a new presentation, but it does still use a lot of the information which I provided to the producer of the new video, which is being used as a talking point for module 3. And Science Being Seen, I'm still giving these presentations every 2 months. There will be a variation on the theme of Science of Being Seen, and this one will be the full presentation, updated with all the latest science. So do look in if you possibly can. The link to buy tickets is now up on the screen. Okay, so what else have we got for you? Well, another month and more bike thefts, and you might want to have a quick look at this particular video too. I'm just putting the link up to this one. The police basically are hunting 2 men here who knocked a motorcyclist off his bike during what's described as an attempted robbery in Sheffield. Now, the video caught from the helmet cam that the rider was using shows 2 men in the grey Fiat car braking in front of the rider and then steering to knock him off when he tried to pass them. The machine in question seems to be a Honda off-road bike, so I'm not quite sure which one that might be. But the incident took place at around 11 o'clock on Thursday during the day. As you can see, the passenger actually got out of the car but quickly jumped back into it, and the car drove off, possibly when they saw that the rider had a helmet cam on. The rider was uninjured, but the car was thought to be displaying a false number plate and thus likely to be stolen. Meanwhile, head to Barrow in Cumbria, and a moped rider wasn't so fortunate because he actually lost his bike after it was jacked at a junction. He was riding a red Sim scooter. He was pulled from the machine by two men dressed in black, and they both rode off on the machine. Now, this incident happened much later during the day, between 10 and 11 p.m. at night. This was Tuesday, October the 11th. Quite why it's taken quite so long to be talked about in the press, I don't know, but the Cumbria police spokesman has said, "We'd like to reassure the public that this has been an isolated incident and the victim in this case is safe and well." Now, it might not happen frequently in Cumbria, but frankly, these incidents seem to be happening with increasing regularity across the country, which is, in my opinion, very, very bad news indeed. Now, why have I got a slight signal problem? I should be on the Ethernet cable. Right, okay, it's disappeared. I've just reconnected or just plugged the plug in a bit more firmly. Right, Kevin's looked in. Good morning, Kevin. Nice to see you. Right, so what else has gone on in the world of bike theft? Well, earlier this month, one Tristan Williams, 26-year-old, wheeled his bike from his home to the local car park. He was trying to fix an error code, and he didn't want to start it up next to his house and disturb his neighbours. So what he did was wheeled it a few 100 yards away. Unfortunately, just then he got a call on his mobile from a friend, and whilst he was distracted and apparently just meters away from the bike, it was a Ducati Panigale 1199S. Two people wheeled the bike away. A man who witnessed the incident told him what had happened when he turned around and discovered his bike wasn't there. Now, ironically, Tristan works as a product marketing manager for Road Angel, and they manufacture a range of GPS-based products and car dash cams, including car trackers. And he said that Road Angel had been researching and developing what he described as state-of-the-art trackers for motorbikes to help riders actually avoid situations just like this one. Now, I don't know if he left his key in the machine. There's a fair possibility, I would have thought, given the circumstances. The report doesn't say, though, but I did note that he is offering a £2,000 reward for anyone who gives information that results in the safe return of the bike. Presumably, if he did leave the key in the ignition, the bike won't be insured. I don't know about that, but hey-ho. I keep saying, as I come back to these thefts over and over again, something needs to be done, but it shouldn't be left to companies like Road Angel, frankly. It seems to me that, more security needs to be built in to the bike by the manufacturers. And one possibility here is that a remote engine switch off feature wouldn't be a bad idea either. You basically wait till someone has actually taken your bike, they get round the corner and you press the button and the bike stops dead and they have to abandon it. They can't come and tackle you for your disabler for the system because you've put yourself somewhere safe. Meanwhile, Merseyside police have clamped down on what they called antisocial riding during a funeral procession. They got reports of a number of bikes being ridden in a dangerous manner, including being ridden on the wrong side of the road. And this was supposed to be supporting a teenage rider who had died following a collision between a car and two motorcycles back in November. Earlier in November, I should say. Police vehicles and a helicopter intervened, and at least one of the bikes can be seen in this photo. The roads policing unit said on Twitter later that 14 bikes were seized, 6 have already been confirmed as stolen, and 7 males have been arrested. As of Wednesday, all 7 suspects remained in custody, and the police are appealing for help to discover where stolen motorcycles are being stored in the Merseyside area. Right, okay, don't forget, you are watching Elevenses with Kevin Williams of Survival Skills Rider Training. Oh, I've done that one already, haven't I? If you want to catch the show regularly, it goes out at 11 on Sundays and Wednesdays, nearly always live, occasionally recorded, and very, very rarely I miss a show altogether because of other commitments. But if you can't catch it live here on Facebook or on YouTube, where it's also being streamed live at the moment, the easiest way to find it is actually via my YouTube channel, which is Survival Skills UK. Don't forget that all important UK on the end. And you can see a lot of my other videos over there too. So set yourself a reminder and hopefully you'll become a regular, joining me here Wednesdays and Sundays at 11. All right, now what's next? Well, Mutares SE and Co, who are a German equity firm, they are set to take an 80% controlling stake in Peugeot motorcycles. Now, the deal is said to be ready to close. It will be closed early next year. And the only provisos are that they have to consult with workers and with antitrust authorities. But that being approved, the deal is done. Now, based on the history, we always tend to think of Peugeot motorcycles, of course, as being French, but the company is in fact currently owned by the Mahindra Two-Wheel Europe Holding, which is in fact part of the giant Indian Mahindra and Mahindra group. Now, the French-based company makes 2 and 3 wheeled scooters, which are distributed via 3,000 points of sale. So they have subsidiaries, they have importers and exporters, they have dealers in France, they have dealers internationally, and they sell across 3 continents. So Peugeot is still quite a big player in the field of motorcycling, even if we don't see them quite so frequently on the road in the UK anymore. The deal is in line with Mahindra's larger strategy, which is of either turning around underperforming companies or exiting them if they obviously can't do so. So the Munich-based equity company itself has a history of acquiring medium-sized companies based in Europe, which apparently show significant operational improvement potential, and then they basically take them through a repositioning and stabilization progress, and then they will sell them on again. So expect Peugeot to be sold on at some point in the future. Interesting how the financial world juggles things like motorcycle companies, which we tend to assume are sort of self-standing. In fact, they're all, many of them, interlinked via much bigger companies. Now, okay, a confession. A few years back, I was hit with a bus lane fine. Now, it was silly me. I was driving in the bus lane, admittedly. I just happened to think that as it was New Year's Day at the time, that at sort of 4:15 in the afternoon, the bus lane wouldn't be active. Unfortunately, I was 15 minutes too late when I drove into it. It wouldn't have been active before 4 p.m. And of course, the rules did apply on New Year's Day, so the ticket duly dropped through the post. Now, I did appeal without much hope of winning it, and did have it rejected, of course. But the owners of this particular vehicle did have a bit of an easier time when they appealed against their bus lane ticket. If you can see the vehicle involved, it is actually a bus which is in the bus lane. How on earth the system failed to spot that as being a bus, I have absolutely no idea. The owners did say that they recently changed the colour scheme, but nevertheless, it did slip right through the system. Now, a spokesperson for Leeds City Council said the ticket was issued in error, I should Coco, and has now been cancelled. And yes, I should definitely hope it was. They apologise for any inconvenience caused. Right, now, don't forget, if you do enjoy the show, please pop over to my coffee page, drop me a coffee over there. I'll be very grateful. Your cash helps me keep coming back with new stories for you on Elevenses, and you open up a month's access to my archive of old Facebook posts. There's about 800 to read over there at the moment. And if you become a regular subscriber, then you open up even more content. All right, okay, so do pop over there, do have a look. There is free stuff to read, but any support is much appreciated. So, okay, back to the Milan show, and Fantic have revealed their first motorcycle with a twin-cylinder 700cc engine of the modern era, and it goes into their Caballero range, and this is the machine in question. Now, you may well recognize the engine because it is the MT-07 motor. One unkind comment is that it looks like a ditch pump, but I don't think that's entirely true. Okay, there's a few bits of wiring pipework there, but it's not an unattractive motor, and of course it's exactly the same 689 liquid cooled 75 horsepower Euro 5 engine that you're going to find in the MT-07. It's also in the Tenere 700 and the R7, and that should all remind you that the bike is actually the first offspring from the Italian company's partnership with Yamaha, which was announced back at the beginning of 2021. Now, the bike does get a steel frame, but the swing arm is aluminium, and it sits on a front 19-inch and rear 17-inch spoked aluminium wheels. Marzocchi provide basic forks and non-adjustable rear monoshock, and Brembo cover the stoppers. The rider will also benefit from lean angle sensitive ABS on this particular bike, and you also get traction control, 3 rider modes, road, off-road and custom, and all the electricity is controlled via the 3.5 TFT display, which gets Bluetooth connectivity. Now, I noticed the seat's a little bit higher, 830 millimeters, but the weight is low, 180 kilograms, which is just over 400 pounds, and there's 14 litres of fuel in the tank too, so it's a reasonable amount of fuel, just over 3 gallons. Now, unfortunately, you do get a fairly heavy hit on the wallet. The expected price is said to be around £9,000. There's only thing I can say to that is ouch, really. Now, meanwhile, Honda have launched a vaguely similar Neo Retro Street Scrambler style bike, and this is it. Let me just pop this one up on screen for you to appreciate. That is the CL500. Now, the CL label, as you may know, was used years back on a range of sort of vaguely off-road capable bikes. The range ran from a 125 up to a 450, and they were often found on farms. That was the sort of market they were aimed at. But to be honest, back in those days, we'd all pretty much ride anything, pretty much anywhere in those days. So anyway, not surprisingly, the engine in this bike is the now familiar 471 parallel twin-cylinder engine that is found in Hondas and also a lot of Chinese motorcycles too, under license, presumably. It's 34 kilowatt, 46 horsepower roughly, produces 43 newton meters of torque, roughly 32 pounds-feet, and that drives through a 6-speed gearbox. Now, in line with the original machines, the bike gets slightly lower overall final gearing, so that will help it accelerate from a standstill, will impact with a slightly lower top speed, but the aim is that you can obviously get up a steep farm track very easily in first gear. Now, interestingly, given the fact that these 500s are seen as platform motorcycles, the chassis is actually a new one. It's tubular diamond frame, and it actually balances at the rear on a pair of rather skinny twin shocks rather than the monoshock we've seen on these bikes before. I guess they've made enough of the 500 engines now to make it worthwhile designing a new frame to tap into this new market. Now, up front, the forks also get gaiters. If I just zoom in on those, I can just show you that. There you are. You can see the rubber gaiters on the front forks there. Can't remember the last time I actually came across a new motorcycle with those rubber gaiters. The semi-off-road style's completed with the high-level pipe, and you also get the 19-inch, 17-inch wheel combo. The motors are pretty frugal. They do claim 78 miles per gallon for this machine. Whether you'll get that or not in real life is slightly doubtful, but they will certainly top 65 mpg without too much trouble. Partly down to a rather skinny 12-litre fuel tank. That's just 2.6 gallons, and it's actually much the same size as my old CBR 6 start again, CB250RS. All that weight is quite light, 192 kilograms claimed, just over 420 pounds, which isn't too weighty. But of course, if you want to, Honda will help you add mass to the machine by fitting aftermarket accessories. Now, there are 3 different packs. There's an adventure pack, which gives the bike knuckle guards, a high front mudguard, rear shock covers, and rally foot pegs. The travel pack, by contrast, comes with saddlebags, heated grips, an accessory socket, a tank pad, and something that, in my opinion, should have been fitted from the bike from the off, an adjustable brake lever. Frankly, leaving one of those off is penny pinching in the extreme. That's the sort of thing that all motorcycles should have out of the factory to allow people with different size hands to adapt to them. You really shouldn't have to be buying something like this. Can you imagine if a car was sold with an adjustable steering wheel as an optional extra these days? It just wouldn't happen. You wouldn't get a seat in a car where the sliding mechanism was something that you had to buy after you'd bought the car itself. Anyway, that's my little rant. You also get a style pack, which adds, of course, everything that you don't need on a motorcycle. This includes a flat track look headlight cowl, rear number boards, absolutely essential for the ride around town these days, as is the 30mm higher seat in brown with contrasting stitching. There's one thing that I really dislike. It's the current fad for brown plastic seats. And you also get striped decals for the wheels and bodywork. Excellent. Now, I've not ridden one of these 500s for a while, but I confess that I am quite attracted to the look of the basic machine. The price is keen. It's expected to appear around €6,000, and that would be around £5,300 given the current exchange rate. That should appear in the spring. So, right, okay, what else have we got to say? Kevin's just mentioned that BMW have released a new uplift of the 1250 RS BMW. Yeah, okay, I didn't know about that. Frankly, if you want a BMW, you probably, well, I don't know. I'm not going to say anymore. I'm not all that interested in BMWs, frankly. I'm much more interested in middleweight machines which are affordable and usable by people without bottomless wallets. Now, coming to a machine that is affordable and has sold entirely well, and that is the Yamaha MT-07. And it gets a new 5-inch TFT display. Now, that may not seem very exciting, but it certainly caught my eye. And why? Well, I'll show you. This is the display on the original machine that I rode some years ago. Now, 2 things about it. Firstly, it was far too low. It's positioned right back towards the tank. You really have to take your eyes off the road in order to see anything on it. Compared with the dials on my XJ6 or my Hornet, it was much more difficult to look at. You really had to take your eyes away from the road in front. You're sitting very far forward on these bikes, and that was sort of almost tucked under your navel. The second point was that you can just make out the rev counter on there, and I mean just make out the rev counter, because with glasses on, the thing is almost unreadable. It's sort of that bar along the bottom there. You know, I kind of need reading glasses, and that was the only way I could actually see that with my uncorrected eyesight, which is fine for distance work. I've got long sight. I can see a front, but I couldn't actually read the rev counter at all. I really didn't get on with that, as it was a real nuisance. So when I spotted that the display has been changed to this, which sits higher, is much bigger, I did actually get moderately excited. You get 2 display modes as well on this one. The street, which gives you that bar tacho that you can see along the top there. And although I couldn't find a photograph of it anywhere, there is an option to go for a more conventional circular analog style tachometer, which sits on the right hand side, and you get a digital speedo on the left, which is probably how I would set it up. Someone at Yamaha must have heard complaints from other people who couldn't read the original dials. Plenty else to talk about. Aprilia. Now, many riders do still seem to be in complete denial about the coming switch away from petrol. It's going to happen. We have to get used to the idea. And an increasing number of motorcycle companies are accepting that it will happen, and they are taking steps in that direction. And the latest to do that is Aprilia. At the Milan show, the press release which accompanied Aprilia's new Electrica Supermoto inspired e-bike says that the machine represents, quote, Aprilia's vision of mobility for future riders and young people, and is dedicated to the next generation of urban riders. Now, Aprilia says that the Electrica is actually the result of a changing workplace landscape, and they say that it allows a balancing for those who work remotely and those who commute, and that the bike is the future of mobility, offering a clean, cheap and fun way to arrive at your destination. Well, we'll have to wait to see about cheap, but the Aprilia project uses the know-how made available from the Peugeot group, which has been working on electric propulsion since 1975, having produced a long line of vehicles over the years, such as an MP3 hybrid, the first hybrid scooter in the world. Now, the new Aprilia gets an all-new chassis and powertrain, as you'd expect. The motor is centrally positioned, which means that the rear wheel is driven by chain, no hub-mounted motor here. Peugeot are one of the 4 founding members of the Swappable Batteries Motorcycle Consortium, and so it's reasonable to assume that the Electrica's battery will be exchangeable at battery swap stations, which means it will be small. More on this in a moment. The company promises a low seat height and compact dimensions, and looking at pictures of the bike with other sort of reference, it does look pretty tiny. So it should hopefully be accessible to a large number of riders. The bike does get some electronic aids, and the idea is that by making the machine more attractive to non-riders, people will switch from bicycles and that kind of thing, and scooters as well, such as Peugeot's own electric Peugeot 1. And one of the things that they've done is they've given the bike dual hand controls for the brakes. Now, I really don't like that feature at all. I know it's a scooter feature, and it will make it attractive for people wanting to step up for a scooter, but essentially, we're trying to persuade motorcyclists to accept these bikes. And I think that if you turn motorcyclists off by fitting scooter type controls, then you risk turning away a number of experienced motorcyclists who would happily move down to something like this for commuting. Now, I'm old enough, unfortunately, to recall the tail end of the right side, left side argument over the gear shift. There were arguments on about this for years after the Japanese pattern of a left side gear shift was adopted with both the brakes on the right hand side, and there were people claiming for donkey's years after that the old pattern that the old British bikes adopted was best, and some steadfastly stuck to that. Anyway, it will be interesting to see who buys that particular bike. We'll have to wait for the moment. There's no a timeline, and there's certainly no price available on that. But one machine that is due to hit the market in the not too distant future is the Honda EM1 electric scooter. Now, let's just grab a picture of this. There it is. This is being promised to appear as early as next summer, and it is one of the 10 electric motorcycles that Honda has promised to launch globally by 2025. Now, like the Aprilia, the EM1 gets a removable mobile power pack from the battery swap consortium, of whom Honda are also founder members, and that shows the battery being duly swapped. Here's the bad news. The battery can be charged indoors or at work. Obviously, it's tiny, it can be lifted out of the machine very easily, but it offers a very disappointing range, as you might expect of something quite so tiny. Even in this scooter, it's only claimed to offer a 40 kilometer, 25 miles roughly, range on one charge. Now, given that these batteries go rapidly from 0 to 80, but then take rather longer to charge from 80 to 100, that sounds like a practical range of around 20 miles. And if you want my opinion, that is barely usable even for a short range inner city commuter who can swap batteries. There, of course, is just one problem with that. It means that owners who want to ride any further than that will be relying on the rollout of Honda's battery swap stations, and they simply aren't ready yet. Now, with the competition from the likes of Super Socco, who are already established in the electric motorcycle market, I really cannot see Honda's scooter flying out the door unless it is very, very cheap, thanks to the very small battery. Now, another bike with a potentially very disappointing range is this one. This is the much heralded Kawasaki EV. Now, I've talked about this previously. It was launched to the public at the Japanese Grand Prix, if I remember correctly. And as you can see, it gets conventional sports bike styling. Now, it was already known that it wouldn't be a tearaway machine because it would slot into the 11 kilowatt, 14.6 horsepower A1 license category, which means it can be ridden on L plates here in the UK and in Europe. But Kawasaki have also revealed that the bike will have what they call a large battery capacity of up to 3 kilowatts, with 2 of the 12 kilogram battery packs, which are easily removable. Now, you'll probably not be surprised at this point to discover that Kawasaki are also members of the battery swap consortium, and it seems that they will be using 2 of those same batteries that we've just seen on the Honda scooter. Now, 3 kilowatts really is a pretty tiny capacity, and to give you some context, the batteries on the Zero DS range, which is also sort of 125 equivalent, now they start at 7.2 kilowatt. You can upgrade that to a 14.4 kilowatt, and you can go even bigger if you drop in their charge tank, which fills the hole in the middle of what would be a petrol tank on the normal bike. Now, with just the 7.2 kilowatt battery, the Zero DS offers a range of around 80 miles at city speeds, or just under 40 miles at what they call highway speeds. So with less than half that capacity used in a similar way, my guess is that the Kawasaki wouldn't make more than about 15 miles on the open road. Now, I live at the bottom of the M1, so that range wouldn't even guarantee that I could reach Watford, which is 14 miles away, let alone get back again. So even with battery swap stations, which are of course noticeable by their complete absence in the UK, I really cannot see any practical use for this machine, and I'm very disappointed about that. Even if the tiny battery keeps the price down, who in their right minds is going to buy a 125 equivalent motorcycle needs a battery swap after as little as 15 miles, unless it really, really is dirt cheap? Now, once you've factored in the £500 plug-in grant, the 5 kilowatt Super Socco TC Max with alloy wheels costs just £4,399. You know, and oddly enough, pay £100 extra for spoke wheels if you want them. Now, that motorcycle has near 125 performance. It won't be quite as quick as the Kawasaki probably, and it's seriously good value, even if it is only fitted with a 2.7 kilowatt hour battery. The petrol powered rival, the Honda CB 125R, for example, costs £4,599. So the Super Socco is actually cheaper. Now, Why are they out there? Well, my guess is that these bikes are actually being positioned into the market now to show that the manufacturers are actually on the map for EVs rather than acting as serious contenders. Right, okay. Gone on rather longer than I was planning on today. So I think I'll just finish off with a couple of extra motorcycles to show you. This one is the Da Vinci DC100. It's an electric motorcycle designed, it is said, to rival the performance of 1000cc conventional motorcycles, and it's claimed that it not only offers a 200 km/h top speed, and you get the holy grail of a 400-kilometer range and 30-minute charging, which to my mind looks impossible, but hey ho. The scary thing is that Da Vinci Motors have apparently been working on developing this design for 7 years. All I can say to that is time for them to hire a new designer. And one more bike, which I will show you, this one here. I've just gone back to the same one. This one here is the Kymco SuperNex electric superbike. Now, no details on performance or anything else for that, but the honeycomb bodywork is said to aid cooling of the battery and motor, and presumably also add very significantly to aerodynamic drag, which is something a rider could really do without on an e-bike with an already limited range. Now, perhaps there's no coincidence that they don't actually promote their performance of this machine or the range. There is a similar honeycombed naked sibling too. Right, okay, so one correction from last show when I was looking at the sales of electric vehicles and motorcycles which are on the up. I did note that there was a slight year-on-year fall in the sales of the larger electric motorcycles, although frankly the numbers are still pretty low, so even just a couple of bikes makes a difference. But I incorrectly suggested that that might have been down to the plug-in grant being withdrawn. Well, in fact, I got that wrong. The car plug-in grant has been withdrawn, but the motorcycle grant will continue until at least the end of the financial year 2023, so at least till April next year. Right, okay. What's Kevin got to say here? I hope the use of short-range electric motorbikes and smart motorways do not cause issues. I accept A1 bikes mainly used by L-plate riders, so not likely to be an issue. Yeah, that's an interesting issue, isn't it? Of course, how many EVs will be running out of go in on smart motorways? Right, okay, as I've already run on to 40 minutes, I will skip today's discussion point. I'll come back to that on another day. Frankly, I hadn't realised I'd take quite as long today to deliver the show, but hey ho. Thank you all once again for tuning. Apologies if you were hoping to hear my discussion point on is carbon hydrogen neutral. I'll come back to that on the next show, or possibly 2 shows hence. But thank you for looking in. It's a bit of a grey and miserable day here today in London. I hope it will brighten up. Don't forget the December 7th Science of Being Seen presentation. Do sign up for that if you want to find out more about the causes of junction collisions, why high-vis and conspicuity aids don't work as billed, and find out what you can do proactively to avoid putting yourself in a situation where you actually need a driver to see you and stay out of your way. So thank you again for looking in. If you are going to go out for a ride today, it is quite mild. Please stay shiny side up.